Hi, Primas. I'm Roxy,
And I'm Giselle.
and this is the Las Primas podcast. Welcome back.
Welcome back, everyone. We're so happy that you're here and that hopefully you're listening every week with us. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that's really close to our hearts, and that is spirituality. So whether you grew up in a religious household, found your own spiritual path later on in life, or you're still figuring it out, we're here to have an honest conversation about what spirituality means to us.
Today, we're also going to talk about the ways we connect to something greater, how our beliefs have evolved, and how spirituality shows up in our daily lives, especially as women, as Latinas, as Primas, navigating this crazy world. So let's get into it. Side note, I am recording from a coffee shop today. So if it's loud, just let me know. But it feels weird to be in a new space with my headphones. Adjusting.
You're like influencers in the wild. Have you seen that Instagram page?
Dude, those people are so crazy. So crazy.
Sin pena.
No vergüenza. They'll just record in front of anybody, anywhere, anytime. I guess that's what it takes to be an influencer, though, right? Like, the whole point is that you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes when I see people influencing in the wild, I'm like, you know what? Good for you. Good for you, because I could never.
Good for you that you have no vergüenza. Okay. Love that journey for you. Side note, it's been a rough week because we have mono in my house. And my husband got it, and I was literally like, who still gets mono? Mono is...
No shame on people that are getting mono still.
I am shaming people who are getting mono as someone who got mono, okay? So it's been like a weird experience. I had it in college, and I feel like it's a different experience at 35 to get mono. I'm like dying, but
I mean, your immune system is definitely not the same. But I love how your mom knows that mono is the kissing disease.
dude, my mom is like, because your husband must have una novia, a girlfriend out there. And I'm like, yo, if he has a girlfriend, he deserves to have a girlfriend because I don't know what time that man is doing anything. Between me and my son, you worked hard for that shit.
He worked really hard for her.
Shout out to my husband. He's the best. But anyway, it's been a week here. So thinking about spirituality, I through mono have been doing a lot of just like, well, first of all, it was very symptomatic, and I was telling you that like earlier in the week or in the weekend, I like couldn't move my hands very well. I couldn't close my hands. I couldn't move. My joints were like really inflamed, and so I was reminded that I am a spiritual person. I'm just not a religious person. So I didn't necessarily like pray to God that things were good, but I did like say positive affirmations. I tried to keep a positive mindset, and I did sage my house, taking all the bad vibes out, letting all like the spirits that no longer serve us go outside. But spirituality is huge for us. We talk about this.
Also, because we grew up so spiritual. We grew up Catholic, actually, in my household, and then I went to Catholic school growing up too, and then like lost it along the way. But I feel I'm very spiritual, not religious as well.
We have to backtrack. Okay, growing up Catholic, tell us your experience and all the traumas about it.
I feel like every Catholic person can tell you, like, I feel like we all feel the same way. I mean, I think I have really controversial opinions about religion, but like growing up Catholic, there's so much guilt. Like, you literally cannot do anything. I feel like they guilt you with the fear of God, literally. They're like, he's in your mind. And it's like, you cannot.
Yes.
You know, like, you can't do any little thing because God's watching. As kids too, like, you're so innocent and naive, and you're just like a blank canvas that your parents are raising you and teaching you life, or conscious forms, and then you're like, oh God, I can't do this, oh God, I can't do that. And like, maybe it's a subliminal way of like teaching your kids to behave better.
Yeah, like kindergarten was my boyfriend, and I had a big crush on him, and I held his hand, and I was like, I'm going to get pregnant. I'm going to get pregnant because God is watching, and if you hold boys' hands, you get pregnant. Where I heard that, I will never know. I don't know if like this is something I learned in Catholic school, but I will never forget going to Catholic school and being like, oh my God, I held his hand. I'm going to be pregnant. How?
Oh my
I'm 5 years old.
God. Like 5 years old. Oh my
Um,
God. Yeah. It's like, I feel like too, and like the I don't know, the 10 Commandments, I couldn't even repeat them to you now.
Yeah, the Ten Commandments. One thing that screwed me up about church too was like after I went to college, my sister was a teacher at Catholic school that I went to high school at. And my sister's like, you should come to like this mass and then we'll go to this event, blah, blah, blah. I was like, sure. So I go and I start saying the act of contrition and they changed everything. They changed, it's like
Wait,
no
this was
longer like,
recently?
this was like, well, 10 years ago.
Okay.
But yeah, recently.
Yeah.
But I went and it was like, peace be with you and also with you. They no longer say that. They say, and with your spirit. So everybody's like, and with your spirit. And I'm like, and also with you. Not quiet. Not quiet. And I look around and our like youth minister from the school is like, oh, last time we went to church. I was like,
You just outed yourself.
God
You're
damn
like,
it.
I remember this. I'm gonna say this line for line.
I was so confident. I was like, and also with, oh, okay, we're not saying that
You're
anymore.
like, no.
Um, but yeah, growing up Catholic was wild because yes, the guilt and like going to church. We'd go to Latin mass a lot, especially around the holidays because like my aunt would go, my mom would go to church with us. My dad, I grew up. My dad was pretty atheist growing up, so he like didn't participate, and I was always like, how does he get out of this? And I have to go to church. And church was so boring. I will never forget Palm Sunday Mass. Like, what kid is enjoying a Mass where you have to stand for how long? Oh my God. This was pretty traumatic. And I did all of my sacraments. You know, you go through like baptism, communion, confirmation. But it wasn't until college for me that like the wall broke, or grad school, actually, not college. So you go away to college, you're not really thinking about religion, you're kind of like doing your own thing. Then I went to grad school and I learned about the history of Spain. So I have a master's in comparative literature. And as I learned about what church's tactics to manipulate and use propaganda against people, like one example is why priests can't get married. There's no reason for that in the Bible other than they didn't want the money to go to the wives because priests were very wealthy back in the day. And so they didn't want the wives to have the money. So they wanted the money to stay in the church. So the way that they went around that was like, you can't get married, which like set us up for failure because we know the sexual repression in the Catholic Church, especially around priests. So I started learning like little things and like processions. Like it was such a thing in New Jersey to do the processions, and like they had like La Virgen de la Caridad de Cobre, and they would have all these things growing up, and I was always like, wow, you like are so dedicated to the saint or devoted to the saints, and you do this whole thing, and really that was just like propaganda of the church to keep people like believing in it. Yeah, didn't stick as an adult.
Yeah, I went to Catholic college and we were required to take 2 religion classes like in our curriculum. And I I think that's when my veil fell. All those requirements.
Oh my god.
Oh, I was just like, I was learning about things, and then I also started doing yoga at that time. Like that's when I got into yoga, was when I started college. So then like I just felt like we were praying to the same thing. And then once I started to feel that and open that, I was like, yeah, like whatever. And then I remember I was also a bio major. And I remember we had this debate, and it was this guy it was like Bill Nye debating against this like church guy. I don't even know who he is. And they live streamed it, and it was like an event at school. And then like all the science people went to go watch it.
At your
And
school? This was at your
it
school?
was
Oh.
live streamed. So like they weren't there, but there was an event where people would come watch. So like we went to, I went to watch it. And then I was like, Bill Nye was spitting facts.
Oh my god, he's so underrated. Our generation, like, is obsessed with him. Yeah, no, it's true. And I found a stat that said over 30% of US Latinos under 30 say they're spiritual but not religious. And I wonder if it's because like we were so guilted, right? Like everything was about like reza, like pray to the saints, and you pray to the saints for different things, right? Like so Saint Anthony is the saint of lost things. Anytime I lost something, I'm like, dear Saint Anthony, my mom is gonna kill me if I lost this piece of jewelry or this thing, whatever. There's like somebody to pray to for everything. Is that realistic? A lot of responsibility on people,
My
no?
mom still does it. I called her the other day about something and she's like, I'm gonna light a little candle for you for it. And I'm like, I appreciate the sentiment.
Oh my gosh. Um, Another stat is that according to Pew Research in 2014, so this one's a little bit older, 28% of US Latinos identify as former Catholics, which is very interesting too. It makes sense because a lot of Latinos are Catholic because of the Spanish Catholic rule over Latin America for so many years. Um, I think what's interesting about our upbringing specifically is like the Santeria, right? Like there was like this respect for Santeria, but Santeria wasn't the main thing we did. If you ever ask my mom, like, if she was into Santeria, she's like, no, no se te ocurra. But then on the same vein, she's like, yeah, you need to do a cleanse or you need to do this. And I'm like, how do both things exist?
Yeah, like, it's very like not talked about and on the hush hush. But then I think also we've been like programmed to keep it on the hush hush because of history and how like all that stuff is like, connected to the devil, and because like the church ruled everything, and you know that they're conditioned to keep it on the hush hush.
Yeah, it all goes back to colonialism. So, for those of you who maybe aren't super familiar with what Santeria is a mix of religions that happened in Cuba and across the Caribbean that originated from the slave trade. So, Santeria blends the Yoruba religious practices, and the people from Yoruba were West people that lived in West Africa that were sold in the transatlantic trade, and so they were in charge of like the big sugar rush in Cuba, and so that's why in Cuba today and day, like you won't find a lot of native people because the Spanish came, they nixed all the indigenous people or a lot of them, and then they brought in black slaves to work on the plantations, and so then Cuba is predominantly white, black, or a mix of both. And so Santeria blends Yoruba religious practices with Catholicism, and this was due to colonial survival strategies because they had to pretend that they were following what the colonial religion was, which was Catholic, in order to survive. So many orishas, which is what they worship, were hidden behind Catholic saints. So Santa Barbara, the Saint Barbara. It was weird to say that, and it's Saint Barbara, but she is the patron saint of Cuba. She is Chango. Yemaya is like another saint. So this fusion, it allowed the enslaved Africans to keep their beliefs alive while also appearing that they're converting so that they can survive, which is kind of crazy. Catholicism pushes a lot of Eurocentric saints and a lot of male authority figures, whereas Santeria offers access to ancestral healing, a lot of female Orishas, and Afro-Caribbean traditions, especially powerful for first generation Latinas rediscovering their roots. So I'm very fascinated by Santeria. I think it's got a lot of really beautiful pieces to it. And I think a lot of people associate it with black magic, but we know that that is not the case, as being Cuban Americans whose family has sort of lived in a blend of both.
Yeah, I think it's more just like a belief system than it is like associating it with like black magic or anything like that. Even like voodoo gets a bad rep too when it's just a
Yeah.
belief system.
And of course, there is like black magic. And I think black magic, you can think about it in terms of religion as like people who speak in tongues, maybe. It's like an extreme of something or an extreme of a religion.
Because even Catholicism has its dark side too. When they talk about like exorcisms and stuff like that, like that's all the dark side of it. Every religion has a dark side.
It's a way of like reclaiming what was erased through colonization. So it's a way to like reclaim ancestral roots to Africa, perhaps. Um, and also like moving away from like Catholic guilt that we've talked about, sin. Oh my God, the word sin is like
The trigger. It's a trigger.
and moving towards spiritual empowerment, intuition, rituals, versus like mass and communion.
When I think about like trying to get more in touch with my spirituality, it's very intuition based. I'm trying to listen to my intuition. And for me, I also blend astrology and tarot and meditations. But being a Virgo, our body system that's associated with us is our stomach. So a lot of my intuition is my stomach. Like instantly I can feel a situation out and I'll feel it in my stomach first. So I'm just trying to like listen to that more and get in tuned with that more because she knows what she's talking about sometimes.
Totally. My human design chart says my center is the solar plexus, which is like also kind of like your middle area. And anytime I get like a gut feeling, I can like, dude, I can meet someone and I'm like, it ain't it. It ain't it. Just based on like a feeling.
I had a really scary situation happen to me, and the minute that it was like, happening, my stomach like lit on fire, and then I ran away. Like, not today.
And I wonder if there's a mix of the spirituality that we feel inside and like our ancestors. Like I channel my grandmother so much, my great grandmothers. I think about these women and what they must have gone through and how they survived their conditions in Cuba, especially. As you get older, you learn yourself more. And it's a mix of, yes, there's like a spiritual component to it, and you're learning about yourself more when you listen to yourself. That's a form of spirituality too. You know, it's a form of like being so in tune with your body, with yourself, with your inner self that nothing can really come between you and your feeling and what your truth and reality is.
Yeah, that's true.
I love that you talked about yoga. So yoga was actually a really pivotal point for me. I started doing yoga in 2014. I started like thinking about like, well, what does God mean for me, right? Like I think there's this concept of like needing to believe in God. And it started with yoga and thinking about like within myself, like what do I think about? Do I believe in God? Do I not believe in God? Right? To this date, I consider myself agnostic. I just don't know. But what I do know is the feeling that I have when I'm in nature, the feeling that I have when I am just somewhere so beautiful and like in Mother Nature. And it feels to me that that is like the ultimate definition of God. If there is somebody that created this, like they created this for us to like live in these places and enjoy these moments. And that's like what I consider
Yeah, I
God.
think, yeah, when I think about that part of yoga that has helped me connect to my spirituality is always in the shavasana and the meditation ending. The poses for sure and the breath work. And that helps me get in tune with my body and listen to my body's response more. But it's not until I get into shavasana and I'm in that meditative state that where I really feel like sometimes random ideas or questions that I've been stuck on for a month or something, the answer will just come in a shavasana. So lately I've been like, I really want to find a yoga studio that is more authentic to the yoga practice because there's so much more to yoga than just the poses and the exercise you get out of it. That's like the whitewash version of yoga. And so I've just been trying to find a place that is more authentic to its practice. But yeah.
Nice.
But when we went to Mexico, like that was perfect yoga session that we had that something clicked in there. And
That
that
was
shavasana.
insane. That was insane. I don't know if it was like all of our energies were like out at the same time. That was one of the deepest meditations that I have ever been in a shavasana. So it's funny that you mentioned that because I noticed that shavasana has been the hardest part of yoga, and it is the hardest part of yoga for me. I cannot sit still. The moment I sit still, I'm like, okay, like what do I do? Okay, next thing. Okay, where do I, and the whole point is like to practice stillness and I think it's such a good reminder to like slow down, to like take a moment, to breathe. Like what is coming, like what comes up for you in this time? Like what is real? What is inside? So I love that you brought that up because yoga definitely does that for me too. I'm seeking that like connection or that like deeper feeling, and then I go to a yoga class, and then you only have you know 30 seconds for shavasana, and they're like, you're free to leave, the class time is up. I'm like, I don't got time. I came here and this is the time I had, and this is all
Yeah.
you gave me for relax.
Yeah, I know. I love at least 5 minutes, but if it could be like 10, that would be great.
Totally. Yeah. And how does your family talk about religion?
Yeah, I mean, like my mom is the most religious. My dad, I think he's a little indifferent to be honest. But my mom, she still lights candles for saints. She brings the saints flowers, and she is very religious. And she goes to mass like maybe once a month. I think she just gave up when I kept being like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. But she used to push me like, let's go, wake up. But then it came a point where I was like, no.
I get the hija tú no crees en Dios. Like
Oh
my
my
mom thinks I'm an atheist, and I'm like, I am not an atheist. I'm agnostic. It's different, and I find spirituality in other places. I
God.
agree with you. I do lean into the astrology. I do lean into the birth charts and the human design charts and what that tells me. That feels like more of a guide than like a Bible written by men, however long ago. Like we can write a Bible right now, and like centuries from now, people will still follow it. Like, no,
Mhm.
thank you. I'm not following what these men have to say. They cannot rule my
Also,
life.
I've never even read the Bible. Let me just start by saying I have never read the Bible. Like
And that
cover
is
to
it.
cover.
That is a modern Catholic.
I have never read it cover to
No.
cover.
Well, it's the most translated book ever.
I need a Spark Notes, and I just feel like the people back in the day, they were seeing some things. And I believe that those things happened. I do.
Yeah, I
Like
think there's
Noah's Ark,
just
or
like,
not Noah's Ark, like Moses. Like, I feel like maybe they saw that stuff back in the day.
do you think he parted the sea?
Maybe it was an alien because now we know aliens live in the ocean. It could have been an
Wait,
alien.
how do we know that? Um, but I think there's this like difference in my mind when I think about like religion versus like spirituality. And like for me, religion, I think about it as like I think of control. I think about like men controlling. I think about like authoritarianism. I think about like suppression of like women and like women's thought. We grew up as like it was not Mary, the mother of Jesus, it was the Virgin Mary. And that alone, like, put that shit in your head as a young kid. They're like, no, because we can't sexualize our kids. It's like, okay, then why are we calling her the Virgin Mary? What does it matter if she was a virgin or not? I get it was a miracle, but why are you telling a 3-year-old La Virgen Maria? Like, that seems
Literally.
so
Well,
crazy
I
to me.
just watched a video literally today. This priest said, put some holy respect on Mary Magdalene's name
Yo, we need to
because
redeem her.
he
She,
needs a redemption arc. Like he was saying, like in all these different stories, they talked about this girl who committed adultery and like this other girl who committed adultery. And then eventually somebody said, oh, this is all the same girl. And they all were like, it's Mary Magdalene. And he's like, nowhere in the book does it say she's a sex worker. Why are we telling everybody she's a sex worker? And he was basically like, put some holy respect on her name.
Mary Magdalene, this is a space and time where we are redeeming you on our podcast. We trust in you, girl. Don't let these
Hashtag
men.
Mary Magdalene.
Think about organized religion. I think about a lot of negativity, but when I think about spirituality, like I think about people who look to the earth and like ancient ancestors, who we are and how we exist. It's like this planet. It's the dirt. It's that we're all like living organisms on this planet together. Not God created people and the saints and all of this stuff. It feels so irrelevant to me. What is it that defines spirituality for me? It's like an inner voice, and it's the voice of my ancestors and living close to the earth and la tierra. I don't know.
Yeah, energy is at the center of everything. Energy is what created life, and I mean, that's a
Bring
controversial.
in the biology girl, the science girly.
Energy just goes beyond. There's just energy around us that either you're on that dimension or you're not. And
Yes.
I feel crazy when I think like that, but it's true. You either feel that energy or you feel, and that's what a spirituality, like for me, is. It's like trying to connect to that higher energy or that different dimension, trying to connect with that. And then my ancestors and my spirit guides helping me along the way and being there and protecting me against the negative energies.
I do like the thought about energy, though. Everything is rooted in energy. You feel it, you see it, like there's movement, there's life. I agree. I love how you're like, I want to retire energies, and I'm like, I want to get in the dirt with the fungi. Back to our origins of where we
I'm like, open my third eye, open
started.
it.
One thing that is very traumatic about having grown up Catholic is the Easter dresses. I don't know if you had crazy Easter dresses, but it was like such a production. You couldn't get dirty. You couldn't touch anything. You had to be the perfect little lady, and you couldn't move at church. And church was
No,
so
literally.
locked.
And I was matching with my sisters. Hats, gloves, dress.
You and my sister would have a lot to talk about. My sister will never forgive my mom. She was like 13 and I was like 4. And we had matching pamelas, which are like these little bonnet hats that we wore, gloves, and a dress. And she was like, I'm 13. I do not want to dress with my 4-year-old sister.
Oh my God. Yeah, because you guys have a large age gap.
And then my aunt was so strict that you couldn't like talk. At church nowadays, there's like fun rooms for the kids and they can go draw and like there's like a kids section. This was before the kids section.
Yeah, we didn't
Your
have.
ass was sitting on the pews, and then if you like read, I would like read through the books, and
And they'd be like, put that back, stop it. Yeah. And then
you're
you're
like,
like,
what do you want
God.
from me?
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. Catholicism feels like nothing you do is right. Like you could do everything right and you're still doing something wrong. And it's just a way
Yeah.
to continue to control.
I love this new generation of like first gen women that I talk to where it's like, okay, like that no longer really applies to me, but this is like my iteration of what I grew up with. Because I do believe in like to your point, like the Ten Commandments. Like, yeah, it's like ridiculous, but it's also just like be a good person. You don't need a whole like religion. Just be a good person fundamentally. And like I think my mom often is curious about how I'm gonna raise my son to be a good person outside of religion. Controversial opinion, but like maybe he'll be a more respectful, kind, equal, treating women kind of man than being in this like patriarchal church setting. So
I
those
know.
are my final thoughts on that. uh, all right, should we shift to a little chisme cafecito?
Chisme cafecito. Um, I was gonna talk about those girls that went up to space.
Ay, ay, ay.
Right, ridiculous, ridiculous.
So let's talk
Um,
about it. There's 5 women. 5 was it that went up to space,
5 women. I
and
think
they're
the
all
only woman that I feel bad was grouped into that was Amanda Wynn. So Amanda Wynn was one of the 5 women that went up to space, and she's a Nobel Peace Prize like nominee. She studied science, and her dream was always to like be an astronaut. And then she got sexually assaulted, and then she pivoted and did all this work for sexual assault survivors, and she did all this philanthropy work for them. So she never got to like fulfill her dream of like being an astronaut. So she was on the group and I was like, okay, I feel like she shouldn't have been a part of that group. She should have gone to space but not with them.
I mean, what feels so crazy is like, what is inspirational about going up to space for 11 minutes and being extremely rich women and saying, like, take up space? Like,
That was so cringe.
then the administration is cutting NASA funding and, firing female astronauts who actually went to school their whole lives to study this stuff. It's
Mm-hmm.
really hypocritical and just like, it's just showing that, like, the discrepancy between the classes right now.
Yeah, it's like, what was the point?
I hate that whole thing happened. It is just awful.
My other piece of cheese is Paige DeSorbo is thriving.
What a queen. What a queen. Speaking, like, I'm watching Southern Charm. So given my little health condition this weekend, I just like have been binging it because I need to know more about Craig. The only thing I really knew about Craig was Paige, and I was like, oh, he seems crazy. That Winter House up like season that he was on, that he was just like a drug mess. I thought he was crazy, but I felt like, oh, they're like good together. But I am watching Southern Charm. They're the worst people of any reality TV show. They're the most entitled, chauvinistic, like patriarchal men, and Craig has never followed through on anything that he says he's gonna do. It's insane.
Craig
It's
was
insane.
not well liked. I think I said this in another episode when we were talking about them, but he is not well liked, and he only became liked because of Paige, and which is probably why he's showing out now and trying to talk down on Paige post breakup. But yeah, I think
Also,
Paige is like really a modern woman, and she's like, I am who I am. And I think that's what's working for her is that we're like, yes, like we don't want to settle down and have kids. Like, it's okay if you don't want to do that. Like, it's totally okay.
and like you don't, there's no timeline. Like the reason I decided to have a child is because I wanted to do that, and there's so much pressure to have a second. Like you have one and then it's like have a second, and I don't know if that's ever going to happen for me. Personal choice. We have choices now, and like we talked about this in our last episode where it's like the modern women, like people are like living separately as
Mm-hmm.
couples, and it works for them, you know? And so I love Paige. I think she's really great, just like representation of like women being able to own their own narrative and not giving a shit. She's giving no attention. She like
Yeah. She's paying no attention to him, and she just continues to climb the ladder. So good for her. I'm Team Paige.
same page. I'm like the Southern Charm women that are like, poor Craig, poor this. I'm like, are we watching the same show about this person? I'm very
Yeah.
confused. I'm very
Also,
confused.
it's always like, why are you gonna say poor Craig? And why aren't you looking at like the other women all saying the same thing about him, like all his exes? It's like, okay, we're gonna
Yeah.
continue to blame women.
Yep. Yep. So I'm on the same page. And actually this is not cheese, but it's just come to mind. I've been listening to a lot of like different Spanish music lately, and you know, we love Bad Bunny. We do. But like we hope all of his songs are like consensual. I think he can like romanticize that and on the same page be like, are you a stalker?
Like, are you sure she wants to go there with you?
Mark Anthony has this song. This was the 90s. It didn't age well, right? Like a lot of these 90s songs, I'm like, is this consensual? Like, did she feel that way too? Because he has this song about how like he hooks up with the sex worker and then he becomes obsessed with her and he's like, how dare she basically sleep with other men? I'm in love with her. And it's like, bro, you slept with a sex worker. Like, her whole job is to make men feel special, and he didn't take it well. And so anyway, I don't know if any primas have any thoughts on this or
There's this song with Bad Bunny, La Hompa.
yeah.
Do you know the lyric I'm talking about?
No.
He says, "Te escupo la boca, te alo el pelo."
Uh,
Let me tell you something. That better be consensual because let a man do that.
for those who don't know Spanish, it means I'm gonna spit in your mouth and pull your hair. Yeah, that needs to be consensual. A man spitting in my mouth is fucking over. How dare you? How
You're
dare
gonna
you?
regret the day that you. Good
And with
stuff.
that, we end our episode of Las Primas today. We'd love to hear from you all. Let us know if you have any thoughts. We'd love to know about like any rituals or any traditions that you follow. What does spirituality mean to you? Chat with us, let us know. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.